welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. After Egypt have successfully organized and hosted the COP27 in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, and it was a very successful session. Now the United Arab Emirates is scheduled to host the COP28 that would start from the 30th of November until the 12th of December. Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have this phone with our dear guest, Dr. Sayed Nasr, climate change expert. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Well, Dr. Nasr, Egypt have successfully hosted and very well organized the COP27. So in several occasions, we saw President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi have stated or said to the President of the United Arab Emirates that Egypt is willing to help from the experience it had in the COP27 to help the United Arab Emirates as it is going to organize the COP28.
Yes. In fact, the COP27 was successful from the point of view of the results and starting the inclusion of what's called the loss and damage fund, which is very important to compensate the developing countries, the poor countries that suffers from the impacts of climate change and their like the great loss of some crops or loss and damage due to climate change impacts through compensation from this fund to compensate what has been what has lost from as a consequences of the climate change impacts. But
yes,
in fact, in United Arab Emirates, we look that this fund is operationalized because the fund was established in COP27, but still the moderation of this fund, the financing of this fund, the sources of finance of this fund are not yet identified exactly, and it is not also operationalized. We look for the COP28 to make this issue realistic. Also, I am expecting that the operationalization of this fund and also the other commitments like the efforts for mitigation of climate change, the reduction of the greenhouse gas in the industrialized countries will not be so successful because as we see that due to the economic crisis and the Ukrainian-Russian war and many other crises, the rich countries until now did not fulfill its commitments. And hoping that these countries fulfill their commitments in the near future, there is a great doubt about that. Because in fact, until now, there is a mistrust between the poor countries and the rich countries from the point of view of these rich countries did not fulfill their commitments regarding the financing of the developing countries to support them to address the climate change impacts. Also, the point of the technology transfer or the technology cooperation of these environmentally friendly technologies to the developing countries in a favorable way, not in a commercial way. Also, this was not fulfilled in the right way. So I am expecting that maybe the pledges and the promises will be more and more, but the operationalization on the ground will not be so successful. And that's why the expectation regarding what's next regarding the consequences of climate change impacts, I think it could be more worse. The increase in temperature, the increase of the extreme events, and the impacts of climate change will not be less, but maybe more worse and more due to these efforts are not at all sufficient to address the climate change impact.
So you think that this would not face the climate change because the situation is worsening day by day?
Yes,
Yes.
The situation is worsening day by day. In the same time, the real cooperation between the rich countries and poor countries is also not working in the right way. The pledges and promises are more than the actions on the ground.
Yes, Dr. Nasr, with the continent of Africa, the least responsible for the climate change in Africa and the whole world, of course, yet it is still suffering from the climate change, taking in consideration that Africa is full of natural resources.
Yes, this is right. In spite of the very low percentage of share of the greenhouse gas from the African continent, because of course there is no real development and there is no industry. In the same time, this is the most continent that will suffer from the impacts of climate change. And also, as you mentioned, in spite of this, is the richest continent of the
natural resources. Yes.
This is a big problem. That's why it's important this continent should benefit from its huge natural resources and should start immediately to depend on its natural resources to make the activities of the sustainable development, regardless, and not waiting the help or the assistance or the fulfillment of the commitments of the rich countries. This is the only way, not to depend on their pledges and promises, but to start, and then maybe in the future these rich countries, after suffering heavily from the climate change effects, may realize that they should cooperate in a faithful way with the developed countries, particularly the African countries.
Yes. So, Dr. Nasr, what are, in your point of view, what are the kind of measures or some measures that should be taken by most of the countries of the world to face or to decrease the effect of the climate change?
First of all, they should know what's going on in their countries. I mean, there should be strategy and the national action plan to address the climate change in the country, and then start to cope these actions and to integrate these actions within their national plans for economy, for development. The integration of the national activities and the climate change activities, like the adaptation projects and the adaptation and the mitigation projects, within their national development plan is very important in order to maximize the benefit and in order to direct their national economy in the right way, taking into account the axis of environment and the axis of climate change.
Yes.
In such case, we can see that the national development plan is going in the right way. But if the national development plan do not include the actions that regard the enhancing the environment and addressing the climate change issue, in such case, I think they will not succeed to address the issue of climate change, and even they will not succeed to fulfill their development plan in the right way and optimum way.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information, Dr. Sayed Nasr, the climate change expert. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Well, with this, my dear viewers, we come to the end of this episode of our program, The Breakfast Show. My name is Amal Mukhtar. Thank you for watching.